What is up, guys? Delboy here, bringing you my prediction video for Deontay Wilder versus Luis Ortiz. This fight goes down on the 3rd of March and it is for Deontay Wilder's WBC heavyweight title. Let's briefly talk about both guys, their records, their attributes, their reach, etc, etc. Deontay Wilder, the champion, comes into this fight with a record of 39 wins, 0 defeats, 0 draws, 38 of those 39 wins coming by way of stoppage. He's actually stopped every single man he's been in the ring with. Bermane Stiverne the first time went the distance, but Wilder knocked him out in the rematch. Luis Ortiz has a record of 28 wins, 0 defeats, 0 draws, 24 of those 28 wins coming by way of stoppage. It is worth saying that Luis Ortiz also has 2 no contests on his resume. He's got a no contest against Latif Coyote. That was back in 2014. Now, that was because of a failed drug test. He also has a no contest against a guy called Joseph Rabote. I'm not sure whether that was also for a failed drug test, but he's got 2 no contests on the resume. So both of these guys are punchers. Deontay Wilder has a 97% KO ratio, whereas Luis Ortiz has an 80% KO ratio. Let's briefly talk about the height and reach. Deontay Wilder is listed as 6'7" with an 83-inch reach, whereas Luis Ortiz is listed as 6'4" with an 84-inch reach. So Deontay Wilder has a 3-inch height advantage, whereas Luis Ortiz has a 1-inch reach advantage. This is according to the listings on BoxRec. Deontay Wilder is 32 years old. Luis Ortiz is listed, and I add a disclaimer to this, Luis Ortiz is listed as 38 years old, but people do question that. First and foremost, before I actually talk about kind of the styles and how I think they're going to gel, one of the main issues or one of the main concerns I have with this fight is the fact that I'm not sure where Luis Ortiz is at right now. I'm not sure what type of condition he's in, and I'm not sure if he's fit enough to be fighting at the highest level. If we're to believe, and let's go back a bit, Deontay Wilder was supposed to fight Luis Ortiz back in November. Luis Ortiz tested positive for a banned substance. Turns out that substance was a high blood pressure medication. Let's say that was innocent and Luis Ortiz was genuinely taking that. That raises some red flags. First and foremost, why is a professional athlete on high blood pressure medication? You know, what does that tell us about his conditioning? What does that tell us about his physical well-being? Is he ready for this? Is he able to compete at this level? Because Luis Ortiz has never been a body beautiful heavyweight. He does carry some fat. People question his age. Is Luis Ortiz fit enough to fight Deontay Wilder? Is Luis Ortiz fit enough to fight at a high level? You know, that's the first thing. I'm not sure where Luis Ortiz is at right now because, yeah, fair enough. He beat Daniel Marst last time out. He looked pretty good doing it. But Daniel Marst is a guy who is not durable. He's not a tough journeyman. He's a guy who gets knocked out against anyone decent. That's the reality. Before that, it was a year since Luis Ortiz last fought. He fought 2 guys back-to-back quite quickly. He fought Dave Allen back in December 2016, where he looked okay. He looked workmanlike. Didn't look too great, but didn't look terrible. And before that, he fought Malik Scott, where he did look awful. So Luis Ortiz isn't exactly coming into this fight with a high level of activity, and his performances haven't been that great as far as I'm concerned. So I do question where Luis Ortiz is at. And some people are saying, well, you're just taking credit away from Wilder should he win. No, it's not the case. I'd be remiss not to say it. This is just the truth. Luis Ortiz is taking high blood pressure medication. People question his age. You know, he doesn't always look in the greatest of condition. And he's been inactive. And he hasn't looked great in certain fights. So these are all things that need to be brought up. Let's talk about the style matchup. Now, One thing I've noticed about Luis Ortiz, and this is where he could struggle, Luis Ortiz is not a good front foot fighter. He's not. When he has to chase his opponent down, he's not great at cutting off a ring. And what I mean by that is when he's following his man about, first and foremost, he doesn't do the things such as jabbing his way in, and he doesn't kind of take a step to his left or right. His feet are slow. But not only that, when he lets his hands go when he's closing the ring down, he lets his hands go in terrible positions. He lets his hands go when he's either out of range or when he's in position where he can't get his power shots off. He has a real hard time pinning his opponents down when he's on the front foot, and he has a real hard time of judging the range when he's on the front foot. I have noticed that about Luis Ortiz, particularly in the Malik Scott fight. He's really falling short in that fight, missing a lot of shots wildly. When Malik was on the ropes, yeah, Luis Ortiz was getting some work done, but when Ortiz was trying to punch on the move on the front foot, he was pretty woeful, to be quite honest. And that could play into Deontay Wilder's hands, because I think Deontay Wilder, if I was Deontay Wilder, I'd be fighting this fight on the back foot. I'd be using my quicker feet. I'd be using my younger legs, my greater athleticism, my quicker hands. I'd be using all of my athletic advantages in this fight. I'd be fighting on the back foot, popping that jab, making Luis Ortiz be the pressure fighter and picking up points, landing that jab, peppering him, looking for that right hand when available, because Luis Ortiz he does jump in a lot and he's open for that right hand, especially when he throws that left hook. He throws that left hook on the front foot from way out of distance, and Deontay Wilder can time that with that right hand nice and easily. So Wilder, to me, he needs to fight on the back foot. Make the most of his foot speed, his hand speed, his greater athleticism, his power, just try to walk Luis Ortiz onto shots, because if he does draw Luis Ortiz's lead and he makes Luis Ortiz fight aggressively, then Wilder is going to have openings. He really is. Luis Ortiz can't fight on the front foot. He's not a good pressure fighter, and he'll get caught and he'll get stopped if he fights on the front foot. So Luis Ortiz, in my opinion, he needs to avoid that. Luis Ortiz needs to do the opposite, to me anyway. I think he needs to try to draw Deontay's lead, actually. Luis Ortiz can counter. He is a solid counter puncher. We saw that against Bryant Jennings. He was landing that uppercut counter very well at times. He was timing Jennings well when he was coming in. When Jennings was letting his hands go, especially when he had his feet planted, that's when Ortiz really got his work done. So for me, in this fight, it should be Ortiz. He needs to be the guy who plays the counter puncher. He needs to be trying to kind of fight on the back foot. Try to be active with the jab, but don't give too much away. I'd say be active with the jab, because Wilder does get hit with jabs. We saw that against Duhaupas. We saw that against Washington. We saw that against Spilka. If you've got a good jab and you've got an active jab, it will land on Wilder. So Ortiz needs to be fighting conservatively, popping that jab, trying to stay consistent with it, and try and look for those openings when Deontay Wilder gets a little bit frustrated and tries to, throw that right hand. Because when Wilder gets frustrated, he'll throw that right hand and he does kind of lean in. He does throw it from out of distance, and that could be an opening for Luis Ortiz to counter. So he needs to be making Wilder lead. He really does, because I think Ortiz is the more natural counter puncher here. To me, Ortiz is best either as a counter puncher or as an inside fighter. So I feel counter punching is a route he needs to go down. He needs to draw Deontay's lead. If he can somehow get it on the inside, then he can get some work done, because Deontay Wilder defensively on the inside isn't great. I saw Eric Molina do some work on the inside. I saw Duhaupas do a lot of work on the inside. Ortiz has a great inside game. He works the body very well. He comes up with uppercuts. He changes angles of his shots on the inside. On the inside, Ortiz is quite good, especially offensively. So if Ortiz has moments on the inside where he has Wilder, he does need to let his hands go. He needs to work that body, and he needs to make Deontay feel a bit of pain. But I do wonder how often this fight goes to the inside. I think this fight is going to be strictly a kind of a chess match where both guys are standing off each other and they're both looking for that big right hand. But it's just who is made to go forward, I think, could be the guy who comes unstuck. I feel that could be the case here. Especially in case of Luis Ortiz, because to me the guy can't fight on the front foot at all. I think he's poor on the front foot. Deontay Wilder, to me, he's not a great front foot fighter, as we saw against Gerald Washington. But the thing is, with Wilder, regardless of how poor he is at cutting off a ring and whatnot, if he lands one shot, it's over. He still has that equaliser. And I know Ortiz hits hard, but he doesn't have the equaliser Wilder does, as far as I'm concerned. So, to me, this fight will be a chess match. It's just who draws the other's lead. I think that's going to be the key here. I'd be surprised if it's a phone booth type fight, because although, like I said, Ortiz is great on the inside, I just don't think there's going to be opportune moments for it to play a major factor. I can't see this fight being drawn out on the inside that often. But when it is, he does need to work. He needs to work that body. He needs to catch Deontay with some sneaky uppercuts on the inside, chopping shots. You know, he needs to make Deontay Wilder think. He needs to make Deontay Wilder realise that, you know, there's something coming back here. He needs to try and stem the confidence of Deontay Wilder. It's an intriguing fight. It really is. Stylistically, I think it is a good fight. And I do like the fight, but my whole issue is the fact that I just don't know where Luis Ortiz is at right now. And I can't pick a guy like that. I just can't. That's just the reality. I like Luis Ortiz. I like his style. I think he's probably the more, well, he is the more skilled fighter, but I think Wilder is fresher. And stylistically, I don't think it's a terrible fight for him. You know, Ortiz does have defensive vulnerabilities. He really does. As does Wilder. But Ortiz being the older man, being the slower man, and yeah, I think Luis Ortiz is slower. I think he could be the guy who is made to pay here. I'm going to go with a Deontay Wilder mid-round stoppage. I think Ortiz is going to walk onto something big, and Wilder's going to jump on him and finish it. Up until that point, I think it'll be a closely contested boxing match, when neither guy probably actually draws each other's lead. They're kind of just standing in the middle of the ring, popping jabs, looking for counters, showing each other angles. But nobody really does anything. I can't see this fight actually being that explosive. Maybe I'm wrong. But I've got Deontay Wilder to win this fight. I think there's a reason why Deontay Wilder and his team are taking this fight now. And I feel one of the reasons is they feel the style matchup isn't exactly too harsh on him. And like me, they question where Luis Ortiz is at right now. You know? It's an interesting fight. I'm looking forward to it. I still think this is Deontay Wilder's toughest test by far. I'm not trying... If Wilder wins this fight, I will give him credit. I know a lot of guys are going to say, well, you're just saying Ortiz could be shot just so you don't have to give Wilder credit. It's not the case. Like I said, I'd be remiss not to mention it, as far as I'm concerned. I think I'd be remiss not to mention it. I still, having said that, I still think this is Wilder's toughest test. So should he win, I'll give him a lot of credit. I still think Ortiz is a good fighter. But it's just how good. It's just where he's at. That's the only thing I'm saying. Good fight. Looking forward to it. We'll know a bit more about Deontay Wilder after this fight. What do you guys think? Peace.